All right, I think we'll get started now. How's everybody doing? All right, so welcome to Internships 101, how to land a tech internship. So my name is Isaac. I'm a fifth year cognitive systems and computer science student. I'm currently looking for new grad roles, and I'm a previous intern at Tesla, astronomer, physio, and live here. And I'm technically a pre-med turned CS student. So pretty much my backstory is I got into UBC in first year and I was planning on doing pre-med. I wanted to do psychiatry. And then I took my first Chem 121 midterm. I got 60%, and I said, okay, never mind, I'm not doing this ever again. So after that, I kind of looked into other roles. I was looking into other courses and trying to kind of diversify and figure out what I liked. And I tried taking Comp Sci 103 in my second term. And I really enjoyed it. I did really well. I really enjoyed that course. And ever since then, I never really looked back. So before we begin, I just want to get a kind of good understanding of what the crowd is like. So how many of you are majoring or planning on majoring in CS or something related to that? Just a show of hands. Okay, so a large majority. And then how many of you are interested in doing software engineering? Okay, how many of you are interested in doing design, like UI, UX design, product design? Okay, a couple of you. And then the rest of you, how many of you are interested in doing PM or more business in tech roles? Okay, good. Yeah, so just to be more upfront, this workshop is more geared towards software engineering. A lot of my experiences and the things I'm going to talk about is more on that end, but I think you're still going to be able to get a lot of information and a lot of insight in regards to other roles that you might be interested in. And we also have a diverse panelist that will be talking at the end. They have lots of experience in things that I don't have experience in, so it'll be great to hear from them as well. And this is more of a general overview to help you get started. It's not supposed to be a comprehensive guide. I'm talking about a lot of different topics. There's a lot of breadth that's going to be covered and not that much depth. And it's not really, this workshop's not really intended to give you imposter syndrome or anything like that. The point of this is to kind of give you more insight about different things. It's not to make you worried or stressed out. And it's okay if this is the first time you've heard about anything that I'm talking about today. And everybody walks a really different career path. So you don't really have to follow the path that I took. Even the path that I took is pretty atypical. I think it's different than other people. And also a lot of things I talk about are kind of subjective. So I'll let you know when that's subjective and it's not subjective. So take some of the things I say with a grain of salt. And you can save all questions towards the end because we have a Q&A panel at the end for you to ask any questions. All right, so pretty much how this workshop is going to be split up into is going to be job search prep. So going over projects, clubs, resumes, cover letter, and then the job search itself. So how that process works, how to find companies, how to apply, LinkedIn, networking and referrals, different in-person events you might want to be interested in, co-op, interview prep, as well as values. All right, so job search prep. So when it comes to prepping for a job search, you want to first make sure that you do and have personal projects and hackathons. So the fact that you're here already is a great step towards the right direction. So personal projects are projects that you can work on outside of school. And hackathons are, as you may know, are 12 or 24-hour or 36-hour events where you and a team will build a project together, you'll present to judges, and you can win some prizes. And some typical beginner languages that you might use to work on these projects could be Python or JavaScript or Java. But honestly, the languages doesn't really matter. All that matters is that you're exploring and working with new tech and different frameworks. And some good example projects that might be relevant could be making a personal website, building a CRUD app, create, read, update, delete, a bit of a full stack app that you build the back end and the front end, or anything that you're really interested in. So people always ask, oh, like what project should I build? Like what should I make? I don't know what to make, right? Find something that you're really interested in. Maybe it's a hobby. If you really like basketball, what if you want to plot out like how the stats of your favorite team is going to do throughout the season? Or maybe you want to write some program to see if you can predict it. Or maybe you want to write a program that lets you know when they're playing or gives you all the links and lets you know where to watch streams and things like that. So kind of take something you're interested in and think of things that could help you fix a problem in your life or fix a part of it that you think is a little bit annoying or something you want to improve upon. And that might be a project that you might be interested in building out. And clubs are also a really good opportunity to make friends and meet other people in tech. this is a really good opportunity for you to build leadership or event planning, dev, design, marketing, and sponsorship experience, or just experience in general, things that are not necessarily directly related to tech, but sometimes seeing that you're involved in like the tech community at whatever school you go to is also a really good look. So some UBC tech clubs to consider would be nwPlus, BizTech, UBC PM, or Women in CS, or Women in Data Science, the CSSS, Launchpad, and other engineering design teams. But it's not really just limited to these, or whatever your school offers, or whatever you're interested in. Those are always opportunities for you to kind of consider. And then your resume is the most important thing you have when you apply to jobs. So on your typical resume, you want to include education, work experience, club experience, projects, and awards. And you really want to tie this to the job description. So whatever job you're applying to, you can kind of manipulate your resume to kind of fit exactly what they're looking for. So if you have a job that's looking for mainly front-end roles or front-end experience, and you have a lot of that experience, you definitely want to highlight that, and not really highlight as much of the things that are not as relevant. So you kind of tailor it in that way. So there's a guide I have here. All the slides will be sent, are available for you to access later, so you can click on the links later. But there's a guide written by Tech Interview Handbook, and it kind of goes over how to write a proper resume. But let's go over what my resume looks like. So this is a very overview of my resume. So I have education, experience, and projects. So I have it split out in these different categories. So we can break it down one by one. So off at the top, I have my name, where I am, my website, as well as my GitHub and my email, and I have education at the top. So what I'm studying, different activities I've been part of. So I was a TA, so I put that on there, part of nwPlus, residence advisor, and all these different things, as well as listing out any relevant coursework. So any courses that you're taking that are kind of related to CS or related to what you're trying to apply to is always a good plus to put on. And then moving on, I also have my experience. So I have listed all my different internships on here, as well as my experience in nwPlus. So I lead sponsorships for nwPlus, so I have that at the top. And then going into detail about each of my different internships. So listing it out by my position, as well as the company I worked at, and kind of how long I did. So a lot of people kind of question like, oh, like, do you put tech or skills in a separate section? I like to have it so that each of my individual parts is separated. So I'll have my role, a description about all the different things that I do there. So for example, as an astronomer, I was working on core backend REST API services. So I'll talk about that, and then I'll list technology. So all the different tech I use, the languages I use, any frameworks, things like that, just because it's more localized towards that particular role. So if I go to an interview and ask me like, oh, like, what did you do here? Like all the information is laid out at this specific company. Whereas if you have just a general skills section and you have all your different skills, it's kind of hard to see like which particular experience backs that up. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways to showcase this. I like doing it this way because it's more direct, but I've seen a lot of different ways. So that's how this part looks like. And then in terms of projects, I like to section it out by the name of the project. If I won the hackathon, or if I won it, I like to say that I won, and then how many projects I competed against, as well as links to the actual app if it's deployed, as well as any GitHub links. And kind of how I section it out similar to my experience side, and kind of just like lay it out this way. So this is my general resume. I try to cover more full stack stuff. So you'll see there's a lot of more front end work, as well as some back end stuff. But yeah, I'll have like a list of other projects I've done in the past on a separate doc. And depending on the job I'm applying to, if it's more relevant to that job, I'll switch things in and out. So you can always customize your resume. I'd say like you keep like multiple different copies. Maybe one resume is good for front end roles, one resume is good for back end, one's for full stack, maybe one for ML or AI stuff. So you can kind of like set it up differently according to what you're looking for. All right. So do you need a cover letter? Short answer is no, but the long answer is no, but maybe. So depending on what you're really applying to, most of the internships are going to have like thousands of different applicants. And realistically speaking, the recruiter's not going to read your cover letter. They barely have enough time to read your resume in the first place. So the cover letter is usually not going to get read. But there are different cases where cover letter is important. So if you're applying to co-op jobs, most of the time they require a cover letter. So you got to write the cover letter. If you're trying to apply to a small startup, say like a Series A, a C, pre-seed, Series B, like these companies kind of care a bit more about your character, and it helps to know a little bit more about the individual instead of just a resume. So having a cover letter or maybe even a short blurb definitely will help for that case. Or if it's a company that you're really, really interested in working for, yeah, feel free to like write the cover letter and let the recruiter know and kind of share a bit more about who you are so they have a better understanding of your background and who you are as an individual. So if you do need a guide to write a cover letter, there is a great guide here from Glassdoor. There's also lots of other guides online, so these are worth checking out. All right, so moving on to job search. So a typical job search process, this is more geared towards software engineering, will look like something like this. So you'll apply, it might be a cold apply off of a link online. Might do a phone screen with a recruiter. So this is typically the recruiter will call you and they'll kind of get to know a bit more about you, more behavioral, more understanding like who you are, like making sure you're a real person. Might ask you some questions about your experience, about who you are. And then if those go well, sometimes we move to an OA, which is an online assessment. So this assessment can be behavioral or it can be technical. If it's technical, you might be doing like a hacker rank, a byteboard, a code signal, which are just like leak code style, but online. And you pretty much like try to solve a question. It might be some data structure algorithm question and try to solve it within that time frame and pass as many test cases as possible. Sometimes they'll give you one OA, might give you multiple OAs. Sometimes this OA might not be an actual like a hacker rank or code signal. It might be a take-home coding assignment, which means that they'll give you like a zip file or a folder or a repo, and you have to implement whatever specification they give you. So it can look a lot different, but pretty much the point of this OA is to do like a first pass testing your skills to make sure you have the technical background. And then if that goes well, you'll move on to an interview. So interview can be one interview or two interviews or three interviews. And there's a lot of different types of interviews. So you'll have your typical behavioral interview where they'll ask you more questions of like, who are you? Or like, tell me about yourself, or like, what are your strengths and weaknesses? Like, how do you manage stress, or how do you manage conflict, things like that. They might ask you questions about your resume, about your experience, whether you've worked with certain technologies and like how that works. There's also cases where these are technical interviews. So technical interviews means that you'll be paired up with another another engineer on that team, and they'll kind of go over like a certain question. So maybe they'll give you a question and you have to solve that question within a time frame. And after you solve it, they might ask you some questions about it, like what if we made it more complex, or what if we wanted to optimize, say, your algorithm? Like, how would you do that? So kind of like differs. And then there's also these things called on-sites or super days. So in the past, an on-site would mean you would go to that company headquarters and you do like a 3-4 hour long interview, like all day long. It's just like 3 or 4 technicals back to back, and it's not really fun. It's really stressful. But ever since COVID, they kind of switch things up, and now your on-sites are in person. So what they'll do is they'll have you talk to different engineers, like 3 or 4 engineers, throughout the day, and just do like a long day of interviews. So usually that would be considered your final round. And then if that goes well, you'll move on to an offer. So at the offer, they'll send you a contract, and you're able to look at how much you get paid for, what the different perks are, all the benefits, how long you'll be working there. And then during this stage, sometimes you have room for negotiation. So you can maybe, if you have other offers from other companies, you can be like, oh, like, can we like negotiate or talk about the price, like talk about the pay, like is there like what's the budget for this job, things like that. So that's a very high level overview. If you're applying for product design or UI UX roles, sometimes that the interviews will be more geared towards that. So more geared towards like technical in terms of product design. So they might ask you to wireframe stuff. They might ask you certain things about Figma or certain parts of the design process and understand, like, you understand the different steps, things like that. So it kind of differs, but this is like a very high level SWE version. All right, so now that we know that, like, how do we find companies to apply to? So very easy is you can use LinkedIn. You can search for software engineer intern or whatever role you're looking to and just search for it and find different jobs there. You can also use Simplify, which is a Chrome extension, but which lets you like auto apply to jobs very easily. And they also scrape the web for a lot of different roles, so you can look through that. There's also a lot of different GitHub resources. So there's these links are a little bit outdated, I think, but there's resources from PTCS, which has a list of different software engineer internships in the US. There's also some Canadian ones. So you can simply just Google software engineer internship GitHub, and you'll probably find a bunch of different links, and you can look through those as well. Levels.fyi is also a really good place to look. So Levels.fyi is like a page where you can find how much each intern is making. So you'll click on the internship part, and you can literally see how much everybody else is making at each company. So you'll see at the very top, you'll see like Jane Street, Citadel, like all these other high frequency trading firms, and they just get paid like $150 USD per hour for an intern, or 100 something. So you'll see that, and you'll scroll all the way down, and you'll see like all the different companies. But it's a great place to see like what companies there are in general that actually offer internships, and you can go off of that and then look to see if they're hiring. And there's also WellFound, which used to be like Startup Search or something like that. So if you're interested in startups, WellFound has a lot of different, it's a job board for startups geared towards that. And you can kind of search through that and look there as well. But honestly, any company you're interested in general is a great place to start. All right. And then for first and second years, this is kind of a simple compiled list of different internships. So Facebook U, I mean, it's Meta U now, but yeah, there's Google Stat, Microsoft Explorer, NIH fellowships. So these are more geared towards first and second year. So if you're first and second year, you're looking to kind of apply towards these, you're looking for your first internship, this is a great place to start. It's gonna be really competitive, but these are really great opportunities to really get your foot started. Yeah. And then how to apply. So I like to keep track of all my job applications with a spreadsheet. And I think the best time to really apply for any job is right when they come out. So the minute they post it, like apply on that day. And the second best time is right now. So you honestly want to apply to everything, even if you feel like you're lacking experience, because you might never know. And it's worth sending out an application, even if it takes, because most of the time the application takes like 3 minutes. So it's worth sending an application out anyways. And for most US internships, you want to start looking 1 year in advance. So if you're looking for a summer 2024 internship, your search should really begin in summer or fall. So pretty much like right now. If you're looking for Vancouver or Canadian internships, you want to look around 4 to 8 months in advance. So if you're looking for something in winter for January, it's kind of late. But if you're looking for something in the summer, there's still a lot of time to book. So you kind of want to give yourself as much time as possible, simply because these companies open their job applications well in advance. If you're applying late, or you're applying when you feel like you're ready, sometimes you might be too late, because in the given market, right, if you have so many different people applying to one job, they might open the job application up for 1 day and take it down that same day, because they just get like hundreds and thousands of applicants in that single day. So honestly, you want to apply as soon as possible, right when you see that job application. And you can have, so this is like an example of a list of how you can keep a spreadsheet of your job search. So this is on Notion. So you can kind of keep track of the company, the position you're applying to. You can have a tag let you know your status of the job application. So if you apply to it, if you're interviewing, if you're rejected, and then when you applied, as well as a URL to the actual job link. So sometimes you might see a bunch of jobs you might be interested in, and you don't have the time to apply to it. So you can just kind of like fill out this spreadsheet and keep track of everything. So this lets you know, have a high level overview of how you're doing overall, like how many responses am I getting, like am I doing well, like how many jobs have I applied to in total, instead of just applying blindly and not really having a way to kind of keep track or see the metrics about that. All right, so moving on. When it comes to LinkedIn networking referrals, LinkedIn networking is incredibly important. Networking referrals literally changed my life. I think last year or 2 years ago, when I was applying for and looking for summer 2022 internships, I applied to over 200 companies, and I didn't really hear back. I did a lot of interviews, lots of OAs, and honestly, it was looking really dry. And it was my first time applying for summer internships, and I really didn't know what I was doing. I was pretty lost. I didn't have an internships 101 to teach me what I was doing. And there weren't that many people I could confidently ask and get good advice from. But I got bailed out by a referral. So one of my really, really good friends and a mentor of mine, he had interned at Tesla before, and he was asking me, do you want a referral here? I was like, yeah, of course. Who wouldn't, right? And pretty much that referral set me up with the hiring manager and got me fast-tracked into doing interviews. And then I ended up passing the interviews, and I ended up getting a job. So being able to use LinkedIn and use networking and use referrals can really help propel you and move you along. So a lot of my experience I actually just got from networking referrals, and it honestly has paid off a lot. So I'm saying all this, but what does this really mean? So when it comes to LinkedIn, you want to look for people that either have worked at that place that you're interested in working at, or maybe you want to talk to a recruiter, or you can talk to a hiring manager, and that's a really good place to start. So you'll talk to them, you ask them, I'm interested in working at this role, I applied for the job already, and of this and this experience, I think I'd be a really good fit. Can you tell me a bit more about this role? I want to learn a bit more. Or you can reach out to people who worked there in the past, or people who work there right now, and you can ask them about their experience, and you can set up a coffee chat, and you can talk to them and get to know them a bit more. And if the chat goes well, like maybe you can ask for a referral as well. So it kind of like works in that sense, where you want to be able to initiate conversation with them, get to know them, and build some sort of rapport, and then ask for a referral at the end. And I think having referral makes things a lot easier. The hardest part really about getting started is getting to the interview stage. And with a referral, a lot of times it can fast track you to getting to an interview. And it makes the recruiting process much easier than just cold applying to anything. So these are some really good ways, or just some like first initial starts. And you can kind of keep track of all your different networking things that you might be doing throughout the year using as another spreadsheet. So this is another one. And pretty much you just have the name of the person that you're talking to, the company they're working at. It might be a coffee chat, a portfolio review and whatnot. And then you can say this for the date that you did this chat with. And it lets you keep track of all the people that you've talked to. And if, for example, like one person is like, oh, like, we're not really looking for someone in this role right now, but feel free to reach out. You can always like if once you get more experience and you kind of like grow and you do different things, you work on new projects, you might get new job experience. You can always like feel free to reach out back to these people and tell them, oh, like this is an update. I've been doing this and this. I've gained this experience and I'm much more skilled in these parts. Like, are you hiring, or are there any roles that might fit this, fit my skills? And you can leverage that and give updates to these people, and they'll see that your growth over time. And maybe there will be a role that opens up later on. And maybe they'll think that you're a good fit because there's someone who's reached out to them, who's given them updates, and they kind of know you more than just some random person who code applies. So yeah, it's a really good place to start and build some connections within the industry. And yeah, I think another big thing to really think about is that networking shouldn't just be a transactional process. It's not just like, oh, like I want to talk to these people so I can get a job in the future, though. A lot of times networking can be done within your clubs, within the people that you sit next to in class, and different people that you meet. It's a great opportunity just to kind of make friends first, and then you're more inclined to help out someone who's your friend, or you're more inclined to kind of to help each other out and grow together and succeed together, right? Like everybody wins in the end. So yeah, it's just not, so make sure you kind of take some opportunities to join different clubs, you meet other people. Building projects isn't the only way to, or building projects and grinding by yourself and doing the code all day isn't the only way to success. All right, so other opportunities to kind of meet more people or talk to recruiters and talk to companies would be in-person events. So we have career fairs and info sessions here at UBC. UBC CS department sends out an email every Friday and a list out all these different events that we have on campus. So it's a really good opportunity for you to kind of take a look at what's like you're interested in. Maybe there's a company that you might want to work at. I know like a month or a month and a half ago, Figma came by. They had a info session. They had some other events on campus. So that's a really good opportunity to talk to people who work at Figma, talk to people, talk to recruiters, and kind of understand their process. So you want to take advantage of things like this, take advantage of any opportunities you see on campus, and go out and meet people and talk to people. All right, so I said a lot. How do you actually use LinkedIn properly? So you can start off by looking for a company you want to work for. So say I want to work at Google. I'll search for Google Recruiter or Google Campus Recruiter, and I'll message them on LinkedIn. So usually these people are more responsible for internships, and they're people that you want to talk to because they can actually impact like whether your application moves forward. And I'll search for the company, or I can search for the company. I'll click on company profile. I'll look for all the UBC alumni that work there, and I'll reach out to them. I'll be like, oh, I'm interested in working at Google as a software engineer intern. I've done this, and this experience. Are you currently hiring? And you say, that's your name. And sometimes they might already have a job link out. So you can say, I've already applied for the position. I want to learn more about your experience, or I want to learn more about what it means to be an intern here. I want to kind of get a better understanding. Like, are you free to do a chat? Or are you free to tell me a bit more? And it kind of builds a bit more connection, and you makes your profile more visible and seen. All right, so co-op. So co-op is a program here that connects students with local and international employers. And it's a good opportunity to get internship experience during your degree. So it's a great opportunity to find internships here in Vancouver, because co-op will teach you some basic tips on what to do, how to apply, resume, and interview prep. And it gives you access to the co-op job board, which some companies only apply from co-op students. And it also gives you full-time student status, which is a plus for international students and student loans. So that's co-op in a high-level overview. So this is all subjective now, but I did co-op a couple years back. And honestly, it's a very interesting experience. So I used it to land my first internship at Vizier. This was in my third year. And the workshops they organize are honestly not the best. They're pretty useless sometimes. Like, it honestly feels more like a waste of time sometimes. A little bit of things is kind of outdated, or they cover things too high level and don't really give you a lot of depth. So those are kind of give and take. And then you're also honestly, the best part about it is that they give you a job board, because in that job board, they give you, it's easier to find all the different companies that you're interested in, and companies you honestly have never heard of will be on that job board. So it's easy to just apply to everything that they have there and not really have to spend too much time like looking. You just apply instead of looking, which is a lot easier. And you're also, another thing about it is that you're a much more favorable candidate sometimes, because you've already done a first pass or a first screen by the co-op board instead. So when they look at your application or they look at you, they'll know that you're already like approved by the school. So on paper, you really look better than other people. And then honestly, I think the first part of the first internship that you ever get is the hardest one, because you have limited to no experience, and they're pretty much taking a gamble on you because no one has really like given you an internship before, so they don't know if you're going to be able to do the work. So the expectations are pretty low. But with co-op, it really helps a lot to find that first one, because sometimes they're just looking for those people. They might be looking for people with no experience, and it actually works up in your favor. The only thing about co-op is that you kind of have to pay fees per term. So at UBC, there's an $800 fee per term, which is not the best, because if you're making like 3.4K a month, and you take away like $800, and that's like pre-tax too. So after tax, you're not making that much, maybe like 2.6K. And then within that term, it's say like 2.6 times 4, and then it's minus 800. So it kind of sucks. You're losing $800, and sometimes co-op isn't that helpful. And then another thing about co-op is that they sometimes force you to take the first job that you get. So if you get an offer, maybe it's at a company that kind of sucks, or not as great. Let's put it that way. You won't get to do as much. The exposure is not as good. They kind of force you sometimes to take that role, especially if you haven't been hearing back from too many companies. But maybe you're waiting to hear back from another company, and you're waiting to see what the company says about your interview. Yeah, they kind of pressure it sometimes. So and you can't really negotiate. So there's pros and cons, but definitely the pro is that you get access to job board, and it's easier for the first one for sure. All right, so how do you actually interview them? So when it comes to behavioral interviews, I can use a Google Doc, or you can use Notion to keep track of different responses. So it'll be a list of common interview questions, like tell me about yourself, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses, and it'll be a breakdown of any projects that I've done in the past. I like to also break down my work and internship experience, and I always answer in STAR format. So situation, task, action, result. And you want to discuss features, technical challenges, and anything that you've learned as a result. So what that looks like is, for example, describe a time I had to communicate with a diverse group of people and how it went. So I'll list out the situation. So here at Vizier, I worked with a lot of really diverse people. And the task is I had to set up a meeting to discuss different changes for a project I was working on. And the action is I created an agenda, make sure that everybody got a chance to read it, make sure that everybody during the meeting had a chance to kind of share their thoughts and ideas, and really help me as I was formulating how I wanted to approach this project. And the result is that everybody that mentioned any different points, I recorded it down. I took all their advice, and I kind of used that to help me figure out how I wanted to approach this problem. So that's how I break it down. Obviously, this is a very high level. This is more in depth about what I would actually say in an interview. And you always just want to break it up so that it's easier in this format. So situation, task, action, result, so that when someone's listening to what you're saying, it's not just like like rambling of a lot of different facts, but it's kind of like organized and sectioned out sequentially. And then this is how I would like to format my experience under an internship. So for example, at Tesla, I was responsible for Edge Portal, which is an internal facing web application. And I would mention that I was built with Next.js front end with a Python backend. We created our own REST API to talk to the front end, and then unify all these different Akamai API endpoints, so other Tesla employees would lead, and simplified a major pain point. So this is more of a reference for me, so I can remember what I actually did. Because if you did an internship like a year ago or 2 years ago, like you're not gonna remember all the specifications. So what I like to do is after I finish an internship, I'll kind of break down, I'll draft up like a simple paragraph about all the different things I did, like a bullet point list, like maybe I worked on this feature, or I implemented this, or I fixed this bug, or I refactored this code. And by having a list of this, it's easier to refer when you're prepping for different interviews, and they might ask you questions about what you did there. All right, when it comes to technical interviews, I like to keep another spreadsheet. Like that's the common theme is I just keep track of everything. So I'll keep a spreadsheet of all the questions I've done and any notes. It's really important to learn concepts first, and then, which means really you want to learn data structure and algorithm. So if you're at UBC, you can take ComSci 221, which is basic algos and DS. You can take ComSci 320, which is intermediate algorithm design analysis. And if you're a CS student, you have to take these anyways, so you can do them earlier, and it helps you get it out of the way and gives you a lot of experience. You can also watch MIT's YouTube series. There's also like Harvard's and Stanford's. There's lots of different series online. You can find tons of resources. So these are just really some couple ones that I recommend. And you want to do LeetCode or technical questions that are based off of certain data structures and algorithm patterns. So a lot of patterns might be like linked lists or arrays or strings or binary search or DP or graphs or trees. And you want to frame it that way because a lot of the questions can be summarized pretty much into different patterns. And if you can understand how to solve one pattern, you can solve all the different questions that are under that umbrella. And by understanding patterns, it's easier to see a new question that you've never seen before. And you can know and kind of try to figure out how that might fit into a certain pattern, or how you might solve it, or what approach you might take. And generally, it's good to do around one question per day. Another thing is that I don't actually have on here is that it's good to build out different projects and use technologies that you are interested in using, or technologies that people might be hiring for. So if a company is hiring for a more front-end role and they're looking for someone with experience in MySQL, and they're looking for someone with experience building out Next.js and Node and GraphQL, you can build projects that kind of cater towards that company or cater towards their tech stack. So in the case you get like a take-home interview and they ask you to use their tech stack, you know, and you have the experience to kind of be able to accomplish that. Yeah, so this is like a typical link of our spreadsheet of how that looked like. So it would be the name of the question I did, the status, the category, so kind of what pattern that fits under, as well as the difficulty of it, maybe a solution, and some questions. And I like to also add notes. So if I finish the problem, I like to add a note about like how I was able to solve it, like what sort of approach did I take? Sorry, what algorithm I use, or kind of like the idea behind it. And it's just a nice way to keep track and like be able to summarize the actual steps you took. And then some easy resources would be cracking the coding interview. You have LeetCode, as well as the tech interview handbook, and Sharp Rashad's LeetCode pattern. So these are some really good resources. It's a great way to start. I really, really recommend LeetCode because he breaks down, like, for example, like blind 75, which is a list of 75 questions that people believe that if you do it, you'll be able to answer almost all questions. And he breaks it down really well, has solutions on YouTube and whatnot. So that one's really helpful. All right, I talked a lot. So now what? You want to build projects, network, interview prep, and apply. So you're already at the first step. You're here at HackCamp. This is a great opportunity to really get your first step. There's lots of workshops today. So I hopefully you're learning new technologies and kind of getting some more experience. And you can take that experience and the things that you learned today and really apply them tomorrow during build day. But before we wrap up, let's talk about values real quick. So ultimately, when choosing an internship or choosing a job or anything in general, I think you should really consider what you're getting out of it outside of just doing an internship because Co-op says I need to do it, or doing an internship because everybody else is doing it, or doing an internship because I want to get ahead, right? So there are a couple of common values that people have when they're considering a particular job or comparing jobs. So first of all, we have prestige, which is like how well known a company is. Is it a household name? Like how much clout does it have? Like, so you're thinking like Google or Amazon or Microsoft and whatnot. And then there's also compensation and benefits. So how much are you getting paid, or what the benefits are? Like, do they pay for all your meals? Do they give you free Uber rides? Do they pay for your flights? Do they fly you out to different places and things like that? So these are all things to consider. There's also learning and mentorship opportunities, which means like how much, is there meaningful, impactful, and challenging work to be done? Like, will you actually get to work on things that are interesting? Will there be people who are actually like well fit to teach you and help you guide you along the right path? And then there's culture. How How are your coworkers like? Do you enjoy working with them? Or do you hate every moment of your job? Do they force you to work 6 days, 7 days a week, 12-hour days? Or how do they approach like work-life balance, things like that? And then there's market and growth rate. So where is this company going to go? Are they on the bleeding edge of something? Are they working in LLMs or AI stuff? Are they working in Web3? Are they working in new tech? Are they building out a new database model? Things like that to consider. Are they a market leader? Do they have good direction? Do they have good product market fit? Do they know what they're doing? Are they going in the right direction? So that's another thing to think about. Alumni network is also good. So where have people who worked at this company gone to do? Do they go from this company and start their own startups? Do they go from this company and work at reputable companies and make impact there? So where are these people going? Are they just stuck at the same company? Are they kind of coasting? Are they just rotting here, not really doing anything? And then lastly is optionality. So where can you go from here? After you work at this company, after you do this internship, what kind of doors open for you? Say if you work at a really reputable startup, like where can you go from there? Can you get a job at any other company? This is a stamp of approval that really allows you to do so much more in your career. With the things that you learn in this role at this company open more doors. And a lot of this was taken from Elijah's post on career decisions. So he made this post a couple of years back, a blog post about different things to consider when you're looking for a job. So my current values look something like this. I prioritize learning and mentorship opportunities, market and growth rate of the company, optionality, culture, prestige, alumni network, and compensation and benefits. So honestly, my main focus right now is really about growing and learning. So getting as many opportunities as possible to gain different skills and gain new experiences. And I think that it's really important that you're working at companies that really enable this. So usually that's going to be a company that's moving in a good direction. They have good product market fit. They know kind of what they're looking to accomplish, and they know what direction they're going to. And I'm also looking to really focus on optionality. So where I go from here really opens a lot of new doors. I'm meeting a lot of new people and getting new experiences. And I kind of have culture, prestige, alumni network, and comp at the bottom, not because they're not important. I think these are really important, but they're important in different ways. Whereas prestige, a lot of times if you're on the bleeding edge, you're a market leader, a lot of times prestige and that will be kind of connected. That people will know who you are simply because you're doing good work and you're the best at it. And when it comes to compensation and benefits, a lot of times in software engineering, we're fortunate enough to have the case where you can get even the lowest paid software engineer is getting paid more than the average person. So it ends up working really well. So it doesn't have to be the highest priority, but obviously the values are different for everybody. These are my values and your values may look different, but I definitely encourage you to take some time to kind of think about what you prioritize and what you're really looking for. But this is obviously doesn't really matter too much if you're looking at your first internship. First internship, you just need to get a job. So just focus on that first. But yeah, now we can move on to the panel Q&A. All right, so we have a really, really cracked panelist group in front of you. So I'm going to be introducing everybody. So first of all, we have Alex Hernandez. She's a UX designer at Radix Labs. She's a 60-year CS student. She's the intern at SAP as well. And then next to her, we have Linda. So Linda interned at Amazon this summer. She's 5th year CS, and she also worked at Citi in the past. And then we have Trisha right next to her. Trisha is an incoming software engineer at Microsoft. She also worked at Microsoft last summer, or this past summer, and she's 3rd year Bucks. And then we have Victoria, who is currently a product designer at Utopia Labs, and she graduated from UBC a couple years ago, studying economics and commerce. Yeah, so a round of applause for our panelists. All right, so I have a couple questions set up here first. So we'll go over them, and if we have time, we'll take some questions from the crowd as well. So first question is, how important are internships for grades? How important are grades for internships? You can pass it down.
I can go. How important are grades for internships? I personally would say that they're not very important. I don't think I've ever had a situation where I had to show my transcript. Or I did, but they didn't really care about my grades. But maybe for co-op, they might look at your grades. Maybe that.
Also want to add that the earlier you are in your career, I think the more relevant grades are because potential employers don't have anything else to look into apart from your grades if you don't have any experience. So, but as you gain more experience, I think grades become less relevant or more relevant.
I want to add that, like, I believe that grades are too important. The concept you learn it too hard. And I think have jobs where I can use concepts in my classes. So I feel like if you go like study, really like understand the fundamental.
I'm not an engineer, but from what I remember, I think quant internships really care about grades. So if you're trying to make like super big bang and like go to like Citadel or something, then yeah, keep your GPA up. Also, the first year, obviously, you want your GPA pretty high to get this step. But yeah, I think only in co-op they ask for your transcript, and I think back when I was not a product designer and I was doing data science, they commented on my grades in some interviews. So thankfully they were good, but keep them up at least. But yeah, speaking as someone with lots of experience, you can definitely fall off the wagon in your senior year and chill out and focus on work. Yeah.
All right, so can I get an internship with a non-technical degree or a job with a non-technical degree?
I can take this one. So I have a background in economics and commerce, I have a Bachelor of Arts. Who here has a Bachelor of Arts or is working towards a Bachelor of Arts? I see you. I think there's like 3 people, but I see you. The answer is yes. What I like to preach all the time is just because you're in a non-technical degree doesn't mean that you can't be technical. So I think that's like the biggest thing to keep in mind is just because you aren't necessarily like coding software doesn't mean you can't learn technical concepts. So those things will be extremely important if you want to break into tech, and it doesn't matter what part of tech you want to break into. It could be marketing, it could be product, it could be business. If you don't understand how your product works and the ins and outs of your product, it's going to be a tough ride. So yeah, in conclusion, I would say that yes, you can get an internship. Maybe really quickly, the way I broke into tech was I doubled down on what I was really good at that wasn't really necessarily a technical skill. So I was really good at writing, so I broke into tech through technical writing. And then that was my foot through the door to all the other things that I could get into after that. So think about what you're really good at. It doesn't have to be necessarily related to engineering, and then leverage that to open further doors into tech. Yeah, anything that? Oh, right. I guess like even like product design or like
Yeah, especially if you're looking into like product design, that one is definitely like a self-taught skill because especially at UBC, we don't have like a UX curriculum in particular. We have like literally 2 courses that are relevant, and they're also like gate kept by like onsite Japan. So a lot of people who want to go into design and don't like coding end up not being able to take that course ever. There's honestly so many resources online. Like there's a lot of free courses out there, like Harvard's CS50, Udemy. I don't know why I'm trying to answer questions like that, but anyway, there's a lot of free resources for you out there and lots of like really good YouTube channels. And honestly, that alone is enough for you to learn those skills. And then from there, breaking into your first role is really the hardest part. But it takes a lot of practice and you get it through.
Yeah. How do you overcome imposter syndrome?
I think so. I think you really never get over it. I think I had kind of like a mindset shift. So I think we're really lucky in the industry where people around you are like crazy talented, everyone's doing really cool things, and you have a lot of great opportunities because of it. Like I guess I think you mentioned the values. You have a lot of like mentors around you, even if years before you learn from. So I kind of had that switch to get me know how.
Yeah, also, I lead on to more people, and I remember last summer, I was asking help for my mentor, and I was like, I don't know anything, like, do I actually belong here? But he also said that he's also still personally learning himself, even though he's like a junior engineer, so I feel like just knowing that everyone's also learning, as they go, make it less intimidating in a way, and that, everyone's also really willing to help, as Linda said, so there really isn't anything to worry about, it's more like mindset.
Maybe really quickly, one thing on that is, okay, this might sound bad, but especially being in, having worked full time for the past 2 years, it makes me realize how little people expect of interns. As in, nobody expects you to really know everything. And I think as soon as you realize that, you can become a lot more comfortable, not knowing. So personally for me, imposter syndrome isn't necessarily, gaining my confidence. It's being comfortable not being good at it. And, having those vulnerable conversations with everyone else that is still learning as well.
I didn't know we were all answering, but, yeah, like they all said, you know, if you don't really truly get over it, I think definitely having like a good mentor, actually sure, like in the last week or so, I recently like coffee chatted with a bunch of like older designers like in Vancouver, and yeah, like I think a lot of that time I was just being like, what if I'm not good enough for like a new grad job, or like, you know, even like last year when I was looking for like internship, I'm like, what if I'm not good enough? Having like older, like more experienced people to talk to, oftentimes they will also just kind of like validate you and say like it's all in your head. You're kind of you think you're not good enough. Especially when it comes to applying for jobs, even if you don't meet all this like the job listing requirements, it's like why would you sabotage yourself? Let someone else say no to you. Don't let yourself say no to you. That's something that I've been doing. Obviously, based on what you're listening, like, I'll find a job that asks for like, you know, 10 years of experience, but like, shoot your shot most of the time. And like, the worst thing they can do is say no to you, and there's a bunch of other jobs out there anyway. But yeah, like, talking to other people will really help you know that you're not fired, like, you're not alone. And it's also nice to have an outside perspective instead of letting your thoughts bounce around in your head.
Yeah, totally agree. I think another thing about imposter syndrome is really that as long as your mindset is in the right place, where you're always looking to grow and kind of learn new things, you'll kind of come to understand or have the confidence that you'll know what you're missing or what you're like you feel imposter about, and kind of continue to grow. Like honestly, if you look at each year that you continue on moving in your career, so many things happen and so many new experiences will occur that you'll feel more confident over time. And that will kind of that imposter syndrome feeling will change and evolve. All right. So what's the most important thing you've learned during your tech internship or any internship, and what do you wish you could have done differently?
Actually, you guys gave me the mic, so there you have more time to think. The most important thing that I learned, I think, in my time working, um, is definitely to like sometimes it's like actually for me, I wish I hadn't slacked off so much. So for this is like kind of a plus, kind of a minus. For all of you who want to go work at SAP, it's a very cushy job, I will say. You get a lot of very good work-life balance. And something that I wish I had done was be more proactive and ask for more responsibility, because with responsibility comes more learning. That's the biggest one. Like, yeah, it might be kind of a drag to like work and, you know, like have something to do 9 to 5, but ultimately, the more responsibility you have, the more you can leverage that like knowledge and experience next time you actually need a job. And something I wish I had done differently was, yeah, like ask for some more responsibility, do more. But at the same time, if let's say you're not learning so much, don't just like sit around. Let's say if your internship was really slow paced, I've worked in government before as well, it was really slow paced. Don't worry, you're using your tax as well. But something that I did as well in my slower, like on my slower work internship was I took on other projects like elsewhere. So it's called double dip. I tried doing that as well. Double dipping is sometimes tax fraud and time fraud, but you get a lot of experience and it also opens up a lot of doors for you. And basically, like, do what you can. Don't waste the time that you have, especially in university. Like, getting an internship is a really good way to start your career. And yeah, value the time that you have. I think that was.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing I learned is that like you're clear what you make out of it. Definitely being proactive and asking a lot of questions. There really are those dumb questions, but there are ways to ask better questions. I think that's the most important thing I learned last summer is how I can ask a better practice question and knowing the balance between valuing teaching something before taking action. Hopping on the questions thing, I think one of my biggest takeaways was that it was really okay to ask questions and that they really had very low expectations for the intern. So for me, I think one thing I could have done differently was to ask more questions because there were times where I was just stuck, but I was like, I have to figure it out myself. Like I don't want to like take away from the ability to ask like a simple question or like a simple question. So yeah, but then when I ended up asking them, they just really said wait real quick and then the bloggers published it and I got to do more work. So I think it's actually counterintuitive to like not ask questions. Especially as an intern, I think what everyone says that at Microsoft, like all interns get a free pass. So like copy tablets if you want, ask as many questions as you want, and maybe we'll take it against you or be mad about that.
And all this time to think about something. This is really hard. And so I also worked at SAP and I prefer it as a very tricky job. I am trying to think of something that is not super obvious, but you know, I really cannot. So maybe I'll just quickly go through some of my experiences. The longest internship I had was at SAP. So I had worked at SAP for a while, and then I also worked at a bunch of startups. So the biggest thing that I learned at a bigger tech company was how things are run in a dynamic organization and all the bureaucratic processes related to that. And in retrospect, that was really great for me to learn. I learned a lot about, you know, business acumen, how to do things right, even if it's extremely slow. How to get mentored, how to manage up, how to manage down, things like that. So that was really special to me, and I'm really, really lucky and grateful to have learned that. At startups, I learned how to be resourceful. I got no mentorship, and so it was a lot of me Googling. I cannot imagine having ChatGPT now to help me through all of it. But yeah, it was a lot of me, a lot of trial and errors, and a lot of me trying new things out. So I think about it that way. Like, what can you learn in different like various industries and various sizes of companies? And maybe one thing that I would have done differently is don't just network with the type of people that you think would be helpful, if that makes sense. Like network with your marketing manager. Go talk to your data scientist. I don't know. I guess what I'm trying to say is I in retrospect knew so little about different positions and different career paths. I kind of wish I leveraged more of my time in internships, learning not just about the role that I was in, but beyond that. So I really encourage that.
That was really helpful. Do we still have time? All right. Any questions from the field? I saw you first. Yeah.
So like I'm a secondary student and I want to apply to second term, but it requires me to have the knowledge of BSc and data science. But I haven't taken that course. How do I do the second term? Like I know the development part, but not the BS part.
Yeah. So the question was, I want to apply to internship your second year, right? And the tech interview part requires knowledge of data structures and algorithms, but he says that he hasn't done any of those courses yet. So what's the best way to prep for that? I think kind of like what I mentioned earlier, a lot of CS and a lot of tech is a lot of self-study. So if you don't have that experience, then you have to go do it yourself. So read up on it. There's a lot of different resources. You can watch different videos about data structure and algorithms. You can read, there's this book called Cracking the Coding Interview. You can read that book and you can learn a lot of the information behind it. So a really big part is you have to go and do it on your own, because no one is going to teach you, right? Unless you go out and even if you go out and take the courses themselves, the only person who can hold you responsible and accountable to learning the content is yourself. So going out and finding the resources and taking the time to learn it is the best way to kind of prepare for that. That helps. Any other questions? Oh, we're good then, right? Think we're out of time. All right. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have time for any more questions, so we're gonna wrap it here. But if you have any questions, I will be outside, so you can come by and ask me. But there's another workshop coming up right after, so stay tuned to that. Thanks for everybody for listening.